peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives." These words are a few of the parting words that Jesus offered the disciples before he began that final journey to the cross. They were gathered together, no doubt with confusion swirling all around them. They had been with Jesus for 3 years, taking in, or at least trying to take in, the teachings that he was busy imparting to them. They had followed him around. They had seen the miracles. They had witnessed the escapes from certain death. They heard the words that were being spoken against Jesus. They saw the people gather to Jesus. They had first-hand accounts of Jesus gathering people together, of lives changed, of bodies healed, of belief expressed. This was all a part of what they had been a part of for their time with Jesus. Add into this mix, this picture that's emerging, some of the words that they had heard Jesus spoken. "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Were not their lives changed? Were they not a part of those who had been healed? Were they not a part of the groups who had heard the stories of this new kingdom that was coming to the earth, had already come to earth in the presence of Jesus? Right before their very eyes, all of these things unfolded. It was not only the people who had come to Jesus who had been impacted by the time with Jesus. The disciples' lives would not be the same going forward. It was near impossible to spend time with Jesus and not be affected. Yet now Jesus was saying to them that he was going to leave them. He would not be present with them any longer. "My peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives." If we read the news and we hear of the brokenness that comes from, it seems, most every place around the globe, you can fill in the latest shocking, relevant headline really of the moment, because headlines don't last for a day anymore. There's a crisis usually of some sort, some flashpoint somewhere that's caught somebody's attention. And many of these are valid, and they should be communicated. We need to know what's going on around the globe. Yet I long for a day when the news is not so focused on sensationalism and tragedy alone. When the reports that we hear are ones that encourage us of goodwill toward one another, rather than discourage us and remind us of the ways that we as humans fail each other. I wonder if that will ever be possible again. We've become so accustomed to living in this place where death and destruction, hatred and ruin have become a part of the story that weaves in our lives, even if we try to keep it out. We also happen to be a people with a worldview who love to seek a place where there is an absence of something bad or disruptive. It's been a long part of the American cultural story. And nowhere is this more pronounced than when we are speaking about peace and using a view of the world to look at peace and of our culture to look at peace. For too long in our society, the understanding of peace in the land has centered around the absence of conflict, violence, war. I heard a few of those. If there is no war, then there is peace. Easy. But what do we do with the fact that our country has been involved in some sort of military conflict somewhere in the world that includes unrest in other countries for 24 years or more? My children do not know a time when the United States has not been at war with another country. So are they living in a time where there's an absence of peace because we have war? It's far too long the story that we tell ourselves about peace. In order for us to have peace in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, in our nation, in the world, That which is disturbing our peace, well, it must be absent. So it's a removal theory of peace. If we just remove the things in our lives which have caused us to be disrupted, if we remove those things in our families which upset our order, if we remove those things in our communities which cause us to have separations and strife, if we remove those things in our nation which divide us, if we remove those things out in our world that cause destruction, you can see where I'm going with this. A removal theory that causes peace to happen. While this method can be effective in some ways, the underlying message that it sends to us is that we are the fixers. If we do this, then we will have peace in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, in the nation, in the world. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives. Maybe part of the reason that we have not found peace in any of these places is because we're going about it contrary to the ways that we would find that have been laid out for us in the Old and the New Testaments. Maybe part of the reason that we have not found peace in any of these places is because we are so focused on attaining something that is impossible for us to do on our own. We live with this hardy edge of the wilderness mentality that's brought about these survival instincts. Well, I have them in my blood too, because I have some Kansas ancestors. So there's this sense of this edge of the wilderness. We can do this. We can hunker down. We can survive. We also come from a people who were willing to die for their faith. Now, if that doesn't give you a complex, I don't know what does. Because it does. We are known for the ways that we offer ourselves and our work habits to others in times of distress. And again, this is an important part of who we are. These are all really good traits that have gotten us where we are today. But there's a shadow side of that too. And yet, if we only live in that milieu, then what do we miss? Because I think we miss something important. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives. Now, there are plenty of places that we can find 5, 10, 15, all nicely dividable numbers, easy steps to bring about peace in our lives. Sometimes they come in more biblical numbers of 3, 7. You get the drift. 40 is always a good one, too. A quick search of the internet will probably give you some handles on how to garner some easy practices to get things that will bring some more peace into your lives, into all these places I've been mentioning before. I'm sorry to say that that might garner a little peace in the short term. They're not likely to garner peace in the long term. In the article in the End Touch last week, I noted this saying: peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God. That bears repeating. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God. From far back in the writings of the Old Testament, the word shalom appears. And in our English translations, the word of choice is peace. You've heard me say a number of times that the English language does not carry the depth of meaning that we find in the Greek and the Hebrew languages. One word is far more complex than what we often make it to be. Our word peace does not carry this important factor of completeness that can be found within the word shalom. Within this one word shalom comes 3 meanings and an overarching theme that is cast. And within each of those 3 meanings, the focus is on presence of. There is a completeness that is offered in shalom, a time of fullness, a time where there is presence, not absence of something, but the presence of something, where bounty is experienced, a state of physical well-being, not only for a person, but for the communities of which they are a part of. And shalom also carries a peace with it, a sense of restoration. God has restored, so there are positive, good relations, because God has restored. Shalom peace calls for health. Shalom peace also carries with it a sense of justice. Now, it's easy to use our definition of justice, but it's God's justice that's in shalom, not our justice. Because God has a way of seeing things in a more complete way, with justice and mercy together, not separate. Shalom peace is more than one simple word or a breathing exercise. We could do a breathing exercise that helps to calm our bodies, but that wouldn't be getting anywhere near what shalom brings to us. Because shalom is really a concept for living, that is steeped in the ways of God, the teachings of Jesus, the revealing of the Holy Spirit. Shalom peace takes time and it takes practice. Jesus stood among his disciples on the eve of leaving them. Jesus shared with them the Last Supper, washed their feet. He tried on this last time together to impart the wisdom that he had been trying to impart. He wanted to give them some wisdom in the midst of their fright and fear. And in that evening with them, he was reframing some of the teachings that they would have learned from little on up, that had to do with how God was present and how this Spirit moved and worked. Jesus spoke of the place that was being prepared for them, a mansion with many rooms, and that while he was leaving them now in this form, he was going ahead and preparing a place that would be complete. Jesus gives them an I am statement to hold on to. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And then Jesus says some things that are new. Jesus begins to talk about this one who would come after him, an advocate, a helper, a companion, one who would walk alongside with them and be present always. Now, this may seem commonplace to us. For most of us, we have heard about the Holy Spirit as soon as we have heard about Jesus. We get this whole package. But for the disciples, this constant presence of the Holy Spirit was a new concept. The Spirit came and rested upon individuals, but the Spirit didn't live with each one. In the days of old, the Spirit of the Lord would come for a time. God would come and sit in the temple and dwell there. And the people knew that the presence of God was there on the mercy seat in the place that had been prepared for God. And it was easy to go near to the presence of the Lord because all you needed to do was go to the temple. So what does it mean that the Spirit of the Lord would always be with them? Yes, Jesus says, the Spirit will be with you, and seek that presence. Too often we are seeking peace because we want something else to go missing in our lives. And if that is the way that we're seeking peace, then we will live fairly empty lives because peace won't ever come. We'll always be trying to chase something out of our lives. So how does that bring about peace to us? The million-dollar question remains: how do we get more peace in our lives? I don't usually give you simple answers, but today I'll give you a simple answer. Seek the presence. Start looking for the fullness that comes from the Holy Spirit being a part of our lives. Take notice for the places where the Spirit is moving. The only way to live in peace is to live in the fullness that is offered us in the person of Jesus Christ. We sometimes live in this fantasy world that somehow if we fill our lives with the right things, do the right things, encourage the right things, we will live in peace. If we just get on to the next thing, leave this behind, and go over here to something better, then we will live in peace. If we just make this decision, if we fix it, because we can do that, like we fixed it in the past, then all of our issues will go away. You can fill in the blank with the if we just. Friends, it's a myth and it's a lie because we can't do it on our own. Peace is not something that we generate solely within us. Peace is something that comes with the presence of God. It's the presence of the Holy Spirit speaking into our lives and being this comforter, this advocate, this one who stands alongside us that we hear about Jesus speaking of in John 14. That's what brings about peace into our lives. And none of us here are the Holy Spirit. In the same time of teaching, Jesus promises that there will be trouble, which seems sort of contradictory, does it not? Except, is it not comforting for us that Jesus in his time could say, it's going to be troubled if you follow me. If you live my ways, if you follow my teachings, there will be trouble. And as much as we try to get away from that, it will be right there. Yet, and this is an important yet, because Jesus notes to them, I have overcome the world. The only perfect peace comes from being in the presence of what the Trinity has to offer us. Peace comes when we recognize God, the I am. That was all that was needed to describe God. I am. Peace comes when we recognize Jesus, who is our Redeemer and speaks redemption into our lives daily, because we all sin and we all fall short. But Jesus is there offering redemption to us. Peace comes when we recognize the Holy Spirit, this one who comes alongside of us, the one who offers us comfort and encouragement and clarity and peace. When we hold what these three have to offer us, presence, then we will get closer to true peace. We need to stop seeking our own ways to peace. They're not going to satisfy. We have to stop seeking a peace that just declares the absence of something. Well, this is gone, so now we are at peace. It's an empty meaning of peace that will only leave us unfulfilled. The way that peace comes is by seeking the presence of God, spending time in the teachings of Jesus, and being open to the movement of the Holy Spirit, who can bring peace that passes all of our understandings. Peace is in the presence. So go, friends, and practice being with God. Practice that kind of seeking peace. It will be much more fulfilling than any other peace that we can seek.